So as Principal Hasbury Signal said, we participated in a GNTPD, which was mostly focused on project-based learning. Um, and so we are going to present two of the PBL units that we did this year. And we're going to talk about our process that we went through in terms of how to plan a PBL, how to implement it, how to then reflect on it after you are done. So this is the project-based learning unit that we are currently in. It's called Wild Weather. And our driving question is, how can we as disaster management professionals help people stay safe during severe weather? When I write a PBL unit and I think about a driving question, I really like to give the kids a role to help them sort of think about careers that they could do when they get older, and just to let them really get into the mindset of what we're doing during the PBL. So for this one, our overall thing is that we are acting as disaster management professionals. Um, and then these are our milestones. In a project-based learning unit, the milestones are the big ideas that you want the kids to tackle leading up to the final unit, their final learning. So this one we have 6 milestones. The sixth milestone is just them presenting everything that they've learned and reflecting on what they've learned. And we kind of just sat and thought about what are the different things that we need the kids to understand about severe weather, and what are the different roles that are related to severe weather. So we made sure that they, learned how to identify severe weather, how to prepare for it, how to plan for it, and then how to respond to it. So our milestone one was our entry event. This is how you get the kids excited for the PBL, for the learning. You want to do something that is authentic, something that is exciting. So we have a letter from the National Weather Service who's asking the kids for their help. They're telling them, these are the roles that we need you to take, and these are the things that we need you to research. We let the kids choose. They ranked their top 3 choices of what they wanted to research, and then we made the groups that way. So the kids feel like they have some sort of voice and choice because they do tell us what they want to research, but then you still have input in the groups, right? Because there are some kids that are not going to be able to work well together, and you're able to move those around. Our next milestone was identifying severe weather. So we had the kids work in groups to learn about a weather instrument. So they made an anemometer, a barometer, a thermometer, a rain gauge, or a weather vane. And they used that knowledge to build a functional weather instrument. And then they've been using them throughout our PBL to explore more about severe weather. And then these are just some more pictures of them working together, trying the thermometer out in hot and cold water to see how it changed. This is a video. She speaks really low, so just like give me a thumbs up if you can hear her. Can you hear? Very low. Okay, so we just had the kids use Flipgrid is now called Flip. So we had the kids use Flip to share their learning. So because each group made a different instrument, and we wanted all the kids to be able to understand what the other instruments were. So this is Kimura. She's just talking about how she made the rain gauge. She holds it up to the camera, so she shows you, it can go up to 8 inches. It's holding the water. The rocks are helping it to stand up. And then the other kids watched their videos and they gave them feedback on what they understood from their learning. A big part of PBL that often gets overlooked is reflections. So after every milestone, we have the kids reflect on what they learned, what they did, and what they could improve. And this helps us when we're going into the next milestone to figure out if we need to change anything. And it also just helps them to keep down, something that they learned, because it's hard when you switch from milestone to milestone to hold on to that learning. So what I did, one thing I learned, what went well, and what could go better next time. Our next milestone was preparing for severe weather. So we had the kids make a survival kit. We went through FEMA to see things that should be in a survival kit, but then they also were allowed to come up with other things that they thought would be necessary for their survival kit. And then they had to explain why they selected those things. We had conversations around, is something that's in a tornado survival kit going to be the same thing as what would be in a drought survival kit? And why would those be different? And what kinds of different things would we need? So again, using Flip to share our learning, and you can see here that the kids are giving each other feedback, what they liked about the survival kit and their presentation.
If I were preparing for hurricane, I would make sure that everything's made to save. First, I would pack canned food because without food, you just start with that.
It's the right one for them.
A first aid kit, because it would help us if we get hurt. Third, I would have food. Without this, I would call up. Last, I would have chargers and things like this to charge the car. Having these things would help you keep my family safer.
And that's just a script that he wrote himself. I didn't give them a script or anything to write. So then again, reflecting after, what did I do? Something that I learned, what went well, what could I do better next time? The milestone that we're currently in is milestone 4, which is planning for severe weather. And PBLs are always fun to be able to really get the kids excited, keep their interest. So we have them building houses for celebrities, and they were so excited to see these celebrities. So each type of severe weather has a different celebrity who's looking for a house in an area that has that severe weather. And so they're going to go through the engineering design process to make that house for them. So Bruno Mars is looking for a house in Hawaii, and it is, prone to floods. So here they're imagining different possibilities, and we told them be as creative as you can, because even if it's something that seems crazy, like maybe there's a way to do it. And then here is, her plan for the house.
This was the best part for my class, because when they saw Beyonce, Mr. Beast from YouTube, they were like, we're building a house for them, and it made them excited about doing it. It wasn't like you're building a house to withstand a hurricane. No, we're actually making a house for a person. And then they were like making it extravagant, because of course I had all the money in the world to do this. So they
Okay,
really
I gotta pause. That's not Beyonce, that is Zendaya.
Beyonce's the next one.
See, I said Zendaya right on that one, but look at the next one.
So this one is for Zendaya. Zendaya is looking for a house that can withstand a drought, but she also wants a swimming pool. So they have to think about what's a creative way that we could maybe use, reuse water for her swimming pool or things like that. And then Beyonce for a house in Tornado Alley. So again, they were thinking, like, okay, it's Beyonce. I can't make her a tiny house. I'm going to have to make her a big house. But the bigger the house is, the weaker it's going to be. So what do I do to make it strong for her? So our next steps are that they're going to build the house. We're going to test it. So I told the kids, for hurricane and tornado, we're going to bring a hairdryer and we're going to, blow it against your house and see what happens. For floods, we're going to pour water and see what happens. And then they're going to improve the house based on feedback that they get from the testing and also from their peers. Our last milestone is, how do we respond to severe weather? Because we can plan, we can prepare, we can do all these things, but there's still going to be severe weather that happens, and we still have to be able to respond to it. So they're going to create a response plan like FEMA would do for their community after severe weather. And then they're going to put everything together to create a presentation with all that they have learned.
Mhm.
All right. Uh, Good morning, PS 140 community. We know that the project-based learning is basically, it gives the students the opportunity to develop knowledge, challenges, and problems they may face in the real world, because these are all real world scenarios that has taken place. We also aligned this project-based activity to our science curriculum. It wasn't something that we pulled out of the box. It's just that we know we have severe weather, and we made it whereas the students were very engaged, very much engaged, and yet at the same time they learned about severe weather. We also realized that when we do the project-based activities, there are times where we might have to pull the curriculum and not have it in order. All right, because it has to be aligned to what is being taught in the school, but yet it's another way of them learning. You'll notice that they always have to be addressed with a problem and finding solutions to deal with those problems. So that deals with critical thinking skills. It helps them to be outside of the box. Also, we as teachers are more facilitators opposed to being teacher directed. So we all have an idea of PBL, but we are experiencing a great deal of fun. The students also allowing themselves to become more critical thinkers, and it gives us the opportunity to also reflect on how we can improve it for the next year. Are there any questions?
We also want to show you our first PBL that we did. So
Yes.
if we have 15 more minutes, this was the one that we completed, the 100-mile challenge, which was a social studies PBL that dealt with the regions of the United States. So let us show you that presentation.
So I also put a link in the chat for the Padlet. So just, thoughts, questions, epiphanies as we're presenting.
Does anybody have any questions while we're setting it up? I don't know if I see any hands red, but you can always come to us out there, the third floor to our team, and we'll show you some of the products and answer any questions you may have. It's loading.
All right. So this was our first project-based learning unit this year, the 100-mile challenge. Our driving question was, how can we as cartographers represent the diverse topography of the United States? Sorry, it's like really slow.
Flagging.
All right. So our entry event, again, remember, you want to get the kids excited to be part of this PBL, was that the reality TV show, the 100 Miles, wants to film new episodes for next season. Each week on the show, 3 contestants set out on a 100-mile journey through the wilderness. The first person to finish wins, and the show's producers need more race courses to film for next season, so they need your help to find new courses. The kids were so excited. There were rumors that we were going to Hollywood, whoever won.
They believed that they were actually filming a reality TV show and they were going to win. It was amazing that we had parents contacting us about this reality TV show that their kids were involved in. I think they still believe it.
Yeah, they're upset. They're trying to figure out who won. So this was us getting ready for the PBL. So when we have a PBL, we like to have a place where the kids can keep their research. So we made lab
Thank you,
books.
everyone. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you speaking? I couldn't hear you, Ms. Santos. You go right ahead. Let me mute myself. Go ahead and finish your thought. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So we had lab books where the kids can keep all of their information so that when they're researching and then when they are, going back and forth, they have a place to keep everything. Our next milestone was mapping US regions. So they worked together to make a 3D map of the United States, focusing on the physical features. So we had a big map. They got Salto. They covered the entire United States, and then they had to make sure that, the Rocky Mountains were in the right place, the plains, the rivers, and the coastlines. After making it with the dough, then they painted it. and they made sure that they followed the color coding that we had given them.
And as we reflected on this PBL, that was the only part that we wanted to make changes on how we would do it for the following year. Of each child would just make their own region and not the whole entire United States. So part of PBL is also for the teachers to reflect on what we do, how we can make it better for the students. So we reflected on our own teaching process and how we would change it.
I wanted to say.
Go
ahead, finish.
Our next milestone was greetings from. So the kids made a postcard representing their selected region of the United States, and then they had to include a descriptive paragraph describing at least 2 of the recreational activities from that region. So that's part of the writing, and then this would be an example of the other side. So they had to draw a picture that represented their region. Our next milestone was a regional weather collage. So the students or the teams worked together to create a collage of images representing the weather and climate of their region. The students wrote an informative paragraph describing their climate. So these are some examples of collages. And then this would be their writing. The next one was, our biggest milestone, so mapping the race course out. So the teams worked together to create a 100-mile route through their region of the United States. They had to have 3 natural elements. They had to have 5 pop-up points, which were just things that you could see along the route that were like interesting to look at. There had to be some sort of challenge, and they had to make it challenging and entertaining. So they worked on Google Maps to look at the terrain to make sure there was something exciting there. So are they walking across hills? Are they walking in the desert? Is there only one river within their route? And then they also did a hand-drawn map to help them. And then we worked on presenting our work. So they put together a presentation for the 100-mile challenge panel of producers. We were going to have some people come and watch them on Zoom, but we weren't able to do that. But the step before that was that the kids presented to each other. They got feedback on their presentation, and then they would go back and they would revise their presentation based on their feedback. These are some more examples of different slides. And then again, reflections ongoing throughout the PBL, always doing what did I do? One thing I learned, what's something that went well, what's something that I could do better. That is that. Do you want this?
Yes. All right. Going through the project-based learning activities, we also learned that the students for scientific theories, based on our presentations that we have attended from the beginning of the initiation of this program, whereas they realized that when a student is engaged to a positive activity and allows them to use critical thinking skills, as mentioned earlier, they perform better. And also at the same time, we've noticed that once the students end up learning how to do their own research, the products that they have produced were of a higher quality because they understood, they weren't afraid to make mistakes because mistakes will take place. But they, instead of them whining or crying, they enhanced, they studied, they figured out what can they do to enhance the product that they had made. We also realized during the study of this project all across the board, working with other schools, it was such a team concept, whereas we, PS 140, you got to give us a shout out. We helped another school with their PBL. We actually helped them with the format. I want to thank Angelica for bringing her knowledge to this program. Another school, they started out, they didn't know where to go, how to do it, and we shared ideas, and they themselves also did very well. So we're very proud of representing PS 140, but we also learned that the best is for the children and how well they prosper and grow in learning based on project-based learning activities.
All right, so does anybody have any
Thoughts?
questions?
You can put it on the palette maybe and look at it.
Yeah.
We're going to show the Padlet to see if anybody has any questions that we can answer from the Padlet. I think it's over there, right?
Oh, Mr. Karras has a question for him
Yes,
to say.
Mr. Karen?
Good morning. So I think you guys did an amazing job with the presentation, and I think it speaks for itself because the student samples are in there and the students are speaking towards their PBL. Do you have any advice or suggestions of like how other grades or because I know PBL can be overwhelming of how you guys work together and collaborate to like plan these amazing PBLs, revamp them. I know we've been doing them for a long time as 140. So do you have any suggestions or advice as you guys work together and plan these wonderful units?
Well, we had the time. That was very key. Since we did have these workshops once a month, we had those afternoon sessions with planning time. So we had the time to bounce ideas off each other and to figure out what we wanted to do. So that was key in having the time because the morning time and the one period a week, was not enough. It was more of a check-in time for us on how we're doing and questions that we have with the PBL. But this is an amazing team, as you know, and we work very well together and they're very supportive to each other.
I would also say like start small, start
I
with
was gonna
what you
say
feel
that.
comfortable with. So a
Mhm.
PBL seems like it needs to be this very long unit, but it doesn't. There can be a PBL that just takes you a week. Really flesh out those milestones. Think about what it is that you want the kids to be able to do. And as a team, you can do it where, somebody does milestone 2, somebody does milestone 3, prepares all this stuff. Whatever worksheets we make, we put it into a shared PBL folder, and then we link it in our PBL unit so that we have it there moving forward for everyone to be able to use.
Thank you.
The training that we received in the Gifted and Talented workshop was the same training I received 5 years ago. When we were giving the Banks, it was a Banks, what was it called? The
Buck.
It was Buck Institute.
Institute. And I know a lot of people in this room would change it to Buck Institute. But luckily, Ms. Santa Stefanos had a additional training and was able to gear us in the right direction on how to work towards the end product of a PBL without being sidetracked.